Okay, this story is for Scorpio for this week. However, it's not date specific, so the story may apply more to your past or your future. Okay. So I'm getting your characters from the night sky playing cards, which have constellations on them, and your main character is Orpheus, the serpent holder. The serpent holder. So a story revolving around a serpent holder, the Seven of Spades. Should know. What is this serpent holder contending with? Use my protection cards. What is it that this serpent holder is contending with? And also, just want to give a shout out to Scorpio, since this is your season. Happy birthday, to all of you. I hope you're in your element and feeling good. You deserve to feel good. Okay, this one's kind of coming out. Okay, this is the King of Spades. The walls are the publishers of the poor is the message on here. I don't remember this figure, sorry. Can I get another thing? A serpent holder. Here we go. Protection from predators. Okay. The Five of Spades. So we have a story about a serpent holder who is contending with predators. Protection from predators, and also this message about the walls being the publishers of the poor. Okay, so I get this. I'm seeing that once upon a time, there lived a serpent holder, a keeper of serpents, a serpent tamer, if you will, a snake charmer, who loved his snakes with such a passion. And people traveled far and wide to see the snake charmer and his snakes do their performance. Basically, he would play music to these beautiful snakes, and they would dance for an audience. And this is how he made money, and how he could afford to take care of them. And things were going well for a long time, until one day he heard news of someone leaving a nasty message about him and his snakes on a wall in the city. And the message basically said, that this guy the snake charmer was letting his snakes loose at night to attack and kill innocent people's pets, or people's innocent pets. I heard this message from one of his dearest friends, who also was, quite enamored of these snakes, right? I just been to town, and there's this, everyone's seen it. There's this horrible message about you and your snakes, and how you're letting your snakes eat people's pets. Is it true? Wink, wink. And, he's like, that's not true. I don't even know why anyone would say this. God, these cards are flying around. Okay. We need to figure out what's going on. We need to get to the bottom of this. How scorpionic, right? Getting to the bottom of something. So he said, when did this crop up? Do you know when it happened? He's like, it must have been like last night, because, I went into town today and saw it. I hadn't seen it before. Everyone was gathered around. It seemed fresh, this fresh bit of graffiti. It's like, well, did you ask anyone, like, if they saw anything? And he said, yeah, nobody knows who put it up. It's a mystery. It's like, have you been into town? And the guy was like, no. The snake charmer was like, no, I haven't been into town. He's like, well, his friend said, well, maybe you should go. You know, let's go together and we'll ask around and we'll get to the bottom of it. So, you know, they go. And the first place they stop is the local bakery. And he goes in and he speaks to the baker, and she's there handing out like buns fresh buns to a group of small children. And he says, hey, I have just received word that there was a slanderous message written about me on the town square. Have you seen or heard anything about it? And she said that, yes, I've seen this message. I don't pay it any mind. Everyone knows that you wouldn't do that. And, you know, he says, well, have people been asking about it? And she said, yeah, a few people have. But again, I've just told them that I don't believe a word of it. And that's that. So he's like, well, does anyone seem like they believe it? Do you know of anyone who might be upset with me? And she's just like, look, I don't really know. I don't have the time for this. Just let it go. You know, it's just somebody who's clearly upset with you for something and wants to damage your reputation or name. Don't pay them any mind. So he listened to her, but he was also like, well, no, if somebody is upset with me, I want to know who and why. You know, it's having bad blood when you're not sure who is really strange. Like, who would be upset with me? And, you know, it's interesting because they then go in to inspect this bit of graffiti that's still there, less people are around it or paying attention to it. And he notices something, that there's this poster up on another wall for a traveling circus that is in town. So this is interesting because there hasn't been a circus in town in years. And not only is this happening, like, he finds out about it, of course, on the day that, like, this graffiti was put up against him. And he's like, oh, this is interesting. So there's going to be other people who are working with animals in town. And this just happens to coincide, you know, with this slanderous message going up about me. So he goes back to the baker and says, do you know who put up the signs for the traveling circus? And what was her response? And she says, no, those were put up last night. Probably, you know, around a similar time that your message was put up. Or the message about you was put up. And she winks, you know, like saying, don't pay it any mind. You know, this is probably just some unfriendly competition. Mind you, this guy's famous in the area. And people go to see him, like, regularly to perform his wondrous acts with snakes. So he goes back out and he looks at the sign. He and his friend inspect it, and they see that when the circus is coming, it's going to be next week. And he says, okay, I'm going to go. I'm going to find out what's at the bottom of this. And so he, in the week in between, he goes to his local, like, holy man. and basically says, look, I think that somebody's, messing with me. Can you help me out? What do I need to do? Like, how do I need to confront this in a way that's like, spiritually correct? And so the holy man looks at him and gives him like a message about how he needs to go in disguise, basically. The holy man says, go in disguise, Why don't I give you some of my robes and you can go dressed as me? All right. So the day of happens and he's getting dressed in this like holy man's outfit. And actually he's like really enjoying it. Like he's dressing up, he's having fun, and he's kind of like, yeah, this is going to be a fun circus. I'm going to have a good time, We're going to have some fun here, And his friend comes along and they go. And the circus is great. It's actually a really good time. There's all kinds of, fun happening. And he's not spotted or recognized, by most of the people there. It's a big crowd, and people are too busy paying attention to the circus to notice this like, monk, if you will, that's just enjoying the event in privacy and solid, in quiet reflection. So yeah. The circus is a success. Everyone's cheering, having a great time. And they say, we need a volunteer from the audience. And our snake charmer jumps up. I'll do it, And, they see this monk and they're like, oh, well, this will be interesting. This will be an interesting person to have up on stage. They call him over and blindfold him. So they blindfold him and put him in a box, and basically he doesn't really know what's going on. They perform some kind of trick. He ends up like walking, the box ends up being something that he can like walk out of, and he ends up coming around like the other side, and like everyone's cheering and laughing, and it's great. And the guy like that's in charge of this trick is like, okay, well, thank you for participating. Is there anything you want? And the snake charmer gets up, and gets kind of like in the middle and like loud with the audience and says, I want to know who's slandering the local snake charmer. I want to know who involved in this production thinks it's appropriate to come to this town and write slanderous messages about the townsfolk who entertain our local people year round. And so like the audience, the townspeople go wild, and like people start to recognize, oh my God, that's our local snake charmer. Some people do. Some people don't know who he is, of course. It's just like people are like, oh, gasps through the crowd. And then they start to boo. Boo. Because, he delivers his message so well. And so, full of conviction. Of course, he's wearing his robe, so it has even more authority to it. He's dressed the part of the guy you should listen to. So people start to boo and actually, like, get kind of offended. And so this MC of the event is like, has to like control the crowd, and realizes also himself that this must be the local snake charmer. So he crafts this NC, like, in his mind, thinks, okay, what is the most delicate way to dance around this indelicate situation? And he says, my dear chap, it was the only way to get you to participate in our circus. We've heard about your skills far and wide, and we want to know if you would like to join our traveling troupe and take your snake charming to the whole country. Ooh, everyone's in the audience is like, ooh, what's gonna happen? What will he decide? You know, it's a crazy event. And the local snake charmer says, that is an attractive offer. I will consider it. But in the meantime, if you want to ask me such a question, my door is open. And with that, he leaves. His friend joins him. They go back to his home. And they discuss what happened. And he's like, his friend says, do you think the invitation was sincere? And the snake charmer basically says, you know, whether it was or not is irrelevant. I don't want to work with those kind of people. And with that, they said their goodnights. They went to bed. And he had a dream. And he had a dream where he was in the circus and he was doing his act, and he saw that his snakes did not react well to the lighting and the mayhem and the crowds, and he realized something. He was content where he was, but he hadn't really thought about expanding before. So when he woke up, you know, with this, from this dream, he understood that things needed to change with his act, but that joining the circus wasn't the best way to do that. And so he calls his friend over and tells him about his dream and says, look, I've had this dream. I know that I need to change my act. I know that I could be more dynamic. I know that it's kind of stale at this point and people know what to expect of me. But I know I don't want to leave my home behind, and I don't want to, you know, I don't want to join the circus, you know, and I'm only working with so many resources here, you know. I've got my snakes, I've got my home, I've got me. I need to come up with something new. Something to give my something to give my show a bit more pizzazz. And so his friend is listening to him intently and is like, yes, your show is remarkable, but you aren't making enough money for it. You really need to expand. You really need to grow, you know. Where's this going to be in 10 years? You know, you're not a young man anymore. You have to think about what's going to happen when you're old. You're not going to be able to perform like you do now. So he decided, I need to work smarter, not harder. And he brought in a new element to his show. The element that he brought in was to tailor his production to the local children. You see, for many years, he had been entertaining adults, when really what he needed to do was to bring in the children and to teach them about snakes and about all of their different properties, all of their different characteristics, their personalities, and also he was interested in finding, someone to perhaps take on as an apprentice. So, we're going to cut the story off there. Yes, he got an apprentice. Yes, they lived happily ever after, da-da-da-da. But the point is, our character here, the snake holder, changed his act. He took the opportunity when mayhem and slander came in and people's weirdness was being thrown at him and different opportunities came, and he used it as an opportunity to get back to the heart of what he was doing and to change what he was doing so that it would be meaningful to future generations. So yeah, that's your story. I hope it resonates for you and that you can find something good in it. Thank you for watching.